Oh, I was just laughing the other day, thinking about the time that I said to you at Rocket Mortgage when we were up on the stage, that you had finished like 70th at your tournament debut, and I still don't know why I said that.
No, it's funny.
Good to go? Rex, you guys ready over there? Thanks.
Yeah, be quiet.
All right, we'll get started. We'd like to welcome Will Zalatoris into the interview room here at the Hero World Challenge. Will's making his first start since the 2023 WGC Dell Technologies match play. So, Will, just to get started, what have the last couple of months been like, and how's the recovery going?
Yeah, it's been an interesting 7 months. Kind of the golfer's worst nightmare is feeling your back give out on the driving range at Augusta 30 minutes before your tee time. But no, it's been a patience game. It's been a grind. I had a lot of really good advice from guys that have had to go through the same thing, and all of them said, take your time. No one's ever come back from an injury, taking too long. But I think, I really started hitting balls probably a couple months ago. And really each week has just progressively gotten a little bit better. I was on a pretty strict ball count, strict amount of time of how much I could practice. Had to spend a lot of time, doing rehab, basically 6 days a week. So it's been, I know way more about the anatomy now than I think I ever really wanted to, but, I feel really good right now. It was, I knew that when I hurt my back in Delaware, I was basically asked by my surgeon, he said, look, there's two routes you can take. You can either do your surgery, or you can, do a couple shots and do some rehab and take the prudent route, which really, you don't ever really know coming back from a surgery what you're going to feel like. And especially, I think I was 25 or might have been 26, but, no surgeon wants to go in and do back surgery on someone that's 26. And so the patience side of it, when I came back in January, I still didn't really feel 100%. I tried probably to change a little too much in what I was doing, and kind of got away from my DNA of who I am as a golfer. And the other, kind of the mental side of it too, was I had been on kind of cruise control for 2 years of just this steady progression, being in contention at majors. And I think not really giving myself the time to fully kind of appreciate kind of where I was physically. I still had the same speed and everything, and it's fun to see now, week by week, from the first day I started hitting drivers to where I am now. It's kind of fun. I've got almost all my team here, and we were kind of laughing because I haven't hit balls, when it's been over 55 degrees, and I'm seeing ball speeds that I had back when I was healthy. So, it's like I said, each week it's been fun to see the progression. And looking ahead to your debut here at the Hero World Challenge, why did this week make sense to play your first event in that stretch? Yeah, I had a goal of playing this fall, but it was just too soon, in my opinion, of where I was at. I thought it would have been needed to be prudent on the timing of it. My surgeon actually really wanted me to play RSM, but when I saw the rain delays, that made me pretty happy I didn't play. Playing 72 holes, having everybody here, playing obviously against the best players in the world. And, even though this week is, it's an unofficial event, it's still really good for me to get 72 holes and kind of see where I'm at. All right, we'll take some questions out here. If you have a question, we'll get a microphone to you. We'll start with Dylan on the aisle right here, and then Paul.
Yeah, Will, it strikes me just listening to you that the last 7 months must have been a challenging, emotional, frustrating time. I'm curious what the biggest challenge was for you to overcome.
Yeah, I think when I go from ramping up for Augusta, hurt my back on Thursday, and then Saturday I'm already having surgery. It's a big swing of emotions, and I think the first 5-6 weeks was probably the hardest, and then once I was able to kind of just live life, I went back to school, stayed really busy on that aspect. Slowly started, I think it was probably in the 2.5-3 month range of when I was actually able to go out and like be productive in practice. But like I said, it was just such a slow buildup, and one of the more frustrating things was actually I was told, I can't play more than 3 days in a row. I think this was at maybe month 5, and I had shot like 63, 65, 64 at home, and I'm like, the last thing I want to do is not play golf tomorrow, especially with the months that I'd had leading up to that. But it was really good to, be at home. It was weird, it's something that, I just out of traveling as much as I do, like at home, I leave all my stuff in my backpack. And it's like, I can actually put stuff away in drawers and not like live on the road. And so there were some really fun aspects of that. And, we did some kind of bucket list traveling once I was healthy enough just to stay busy. Really before, we end up having kids, we go into Wimbledon, knocking off things like that. So we stayed busy, and it was a lot of fun, during that time. But obviously, my mind was still on golf.
When you say you went back to school, what did that consist of?
It was pretty funny taking some elective classes when all the kids were, 18, 19 in the summers, and, I'm 27, and, I'm writing my resume for work and, a LinkedIn account and whatnot, and, so there were some pretty funny aspects in there, but when I left school, I finished up my major, but I just had elective classes, so it made it really easy to just kind of finish it up.
Paul?
Think you're getting a job with that resume, or?
So far, so far so good.
Just going back to the injury a little bit, you said kind of in between when you took the rest off after BMW to when you played again, you did a little bit of changing, maybe the swing. Now with the surgery, is it still a thing where you're tweaking a little bit of stuff in your swing to relieve some tension, or are you able, or the doctor saying you can swing the way you have without worrying?
Yeah, so I think when I came back, I kind of was going away a little bit from my DNA of who I am as a golfer. I've always been a very hyper, dynamic, my left foot's off the ground like JT. Well, the reality is that actually put a lot of stress on my back. And I know that I had a bunch of side bend and maybe my posture wasn't perfect, but when my 3 years on tour, my worst strokes gained approach was like second on tour. The last thing I wanted to do is change anything. And I think some of the changes that I made were kind of hard to quantify because I could hit it good doing those changes, but I also could hit it really good not doing those changes, and it could end up being a detriment. And it wasn't so much of the one, playing 4 rounds, coming back, I guess from January through April when I got hurt again. It was more of the second week and the third week that I really was not able to kind of function. And it's something that I've battled for a couple years. I hurt my back probably for the first time like 4 or 5 years ago, but it was just, a golfer being a golfer, just being young and wiry and swinging really hard and, pull a muscle, okay, take a couple weeks off. But really the structural stuff that happened kind of stems back a little bit to the British Open from a couple years back. And then I would even say, the surgery that I had actually was a huge benefit in the sense that I didn't, really thin, really thin, wiry people, they don't have a lot of room in their back typically. and I had, like some stuff that had popped up. Your body tries to heal it, which that ends up putting in less space, and so clearing all that stuff out. I'm probably one of the only people that's gone through back surgery and has actually had better range of motion. But it was the stability coming back that was really the hard part.
And just comparing to where you were in Memphis when you won to now, is it pretty comparable in terms of ball speeds and where you're at kind of pre-post?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's really interesting because this is, I really started hitting balls when the weather started getting a little bit cooler back home. Yesterday on the range, I had a couple of 178s. I think, when I was in competition, I was ball speed maybe was getting up into like the 182, 184 range. But again, like even then, through 2022, is my best year so far. The third week I was still, needing treatment, needing some rehab. And so now having a much better understanding of my body and knowing, what it takes. Like today, even just playing 9 holes, I probably did, 2 hours of work. And it's really not as much about the warm-up pre-round as much as it is the post-round stuff. Just because if I go play golf for 3 days in a row, or if any of us do it, you might get a little change in your posture or whatever. Well, the difference is for me is, when I was in college, I could just go play 14 days in a row and it didn't matter. And then I played 7 in a row my first year out on tour. It didn't have any issues. But, the difference is now where, I would be a guy that I would love if I had the first week of a stretch. I'd love to go maybe on like a Sunday, maybe go play another golf course or go see some friends or maybe even play, 9 holes or whatever. But the difference is now is that I've played a lot of these courses, and pretty much all of them. So I don't need to show up that early, and I don't need to spend as much time out on the golf course or really on the driving range. It's really just, get the conditions, see, how that week's playing and go from there. And really what we're doing is simplifying stuff. And I got to spend a little bit of time with Tiger at Nexus Cup, and really, I mean, he really asked me more questions than I was able to. But it was also the questions that he asked were really kind of thought-provoking. And so, now, as opposed to, just looking at videos down the line and face on, I'm looking at videos from my rear side and seeing how my back's doing and seeing how I'm moving.
Rex?
I was going to ask, how many conversations have you had with Tiger about this, seeing how he went through the same surgery?
Yeah, so we had the same surgeon. Really just at Nexus Cup was when we got to talk a little bit about it. His was obviously a lot worse and a much different surgery than what I had. He's obviously, I think he's had a microdiscectomy or two, but it was more of not changing who I am as a golfer and my golf swing, but just refining things to where they're a little bit more simple. And so I had always had a big reverse C in my golf swing. Well, the reality is, now I'm way more rotational and way more horizontal with what I do, as opposed to being more up and down. And like I said, it's just simplifying stuff. It's not changing moves. It's not changing what I'm doing. It's just, think it through. Left heel off the ground with a bunch of side bend, that just does not add up to feeling very good on your back. And so really, like, the one thing that, Troy Denton, my coach, and I have worked on is, keep that left heel on the ground. Having the left heel up at impact, yeah, maybe you might get a couple more, miles an hour ball speed, but the part that I've kind of enjoyed about it is I'm driving it straighter, even though it might be, 10 yards shorter. But I think my best year on tour, I was 150th in fairways hit. So anything, if I could do better on that end, by far.
And less about the physical and more about the mental. What was the most challenging part of the last few months? I guess watching the majors, watching the Ryder Cup, did anything sort of hit home and resonate with you?
Yeah, I think it was more of just the timeline of, you're given basically what I was told was that 12 weeks, structurally, you will be at the strongest point that you'll be at, but you'll have to build back up to stability. And that could take 12 weeks on top of that. It could take you 6. And so really for the first little while, it was just about, being able to walk downstairs, walk around my house, couldn't pick up my dogs for, 4 or 5 months, stuff, just simple stuff. And now it's the little things that add up. Like if I travel, I'm not carrying a backpack. I don't sit in bar stools just because that's like actually pretty harsh on your discs. It's just little things that add up, especially, when I came back, like there were a few times where I maybe felt like I might have pulled something or whatever, but I knew it wasn't anything detrimental. It's just part of the comeback. And, the line, it was not a straight line recovery by any means. So I think, like I said, the patience and not knowing when exactly I would come back, I knew it was going to be sometime in the fall, but taking that extra, month, I guess, of, since I've really been hitting drivers, I think was really helpful. And I learned a lot in terms of, what I needed to work on, like the left foot stuff, in, getting a little bit more rotational in general throughout my golf swing, which in reality is adds to better consistency and accuracy. So, I would definitely say, the toughest point was early on, just having no timeline and having a general idea, but not you're going to be out for this amount of time before you can start chipping and putting. I had to clear a lot of hoops before I could get there.
We'll go to Dave and then Brody.
All these back explanations are making my back uncomfortable again. Curious, did you play that 4th round in a row after those 3 really handsome scores? You did not? No.
Trust me, if between my surgeon and my wife making sure that I did everything to a T, I was definitely doing everything exactly I was told.
And where were you playing when you shot those?
I was playing over at Brook Hollow. It's a place where I play at in Dallas.
What, you obviously haven't played competitive golf for quite a while. What's a good week or a successful week, or are you here thinking I'm ready to win a tournament?
Yeah, I've been playing some nice golf at home for sure, but I think this week is a lot of almost kind of R&D with, let's see how I feel going into the last round physically. There's this week I'm going to be able to take a lot away from it, regardless of how I play. Of course, I have very high expectations for myself, and I know what I'm capable of doing even just in 1 week. But, there's little things that once you come back and start playing where, if I hit a certain club 150 yards, well, you throw adrenaline in there, I might hit it 157. Well, 7 yards on tour you could be plugged in a bunker, or you could be, over the back of the green and have nothing. And so the little things kind of like the feels of playing a round and playing through wind and playing through different conditions, there will be a build-up to it. I mean, I'm not going to, I'm not really, I don't have a certain, score or place or whatever. It's more of, if I put 72 holes together pain-free and we're able to take away, a lot of things of what I can work on over the next month before I start up for the next year, either way, it's a positive.
Brody in the back.
Now, I mean, obviously, when you're young as you are, and your trajectory is just going up, up, up. How much harder does that make this that you are suddenly just kind of having to kind of wait and put that on hold?
Yeah, I kind of like 2023. I almost just kind of threw it in the bag, and kind of there was a lot to learn physically on my end, and so I feel like I know myself better physically, know myself better mentally, and so I think there's going to be a lot of positives that are going to come from this time off. It's not like I just sat around and didn't even watch golf or think about golf. I was watching guys every day, seeing how some of my buddies were playing, so my mind was always there. But when you're not able to have a club in your hand, and my mission every day is to try to get better, whether it's in the gym, whether it's just thinking through other things, I think, like I said, there's a lot of positives that come from that time off, even though that 2023 for me was kind of a lost year.
Got time for two more. Go to Joy on the right aisle.
Well, you said your microdiscectomy surgery was a lot simpler than Tiger's. Let me just ask you, what is your appreciation of what Tiger had to go through, and the fact that, like you, he's making his umpteenth number of comeback this week?
It's ridiculous. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, what he's doing and what he's gone through with his body, especially to come back and win another major after everything that he had gone through. And mine, like I said, was on a much lesser scale without knowing exactly what he had done. It's mind-blowing to me in so many aspects, and we all appreciated it. I remember watching On the Range on my iPad when he won the Masters, and I remember even having like a little bit of a tear in my eye just thinking through what that guy had to go through to win another major. But yeah, this was my first time really having any sort of surgery in my entire life and going through that recovery process, and the fact that he's had to go through so much and still be as good as he is, even up in his late 40s now, still being able to go out and just play in majors, is just there's no other words to put it besides just putting it in the list of remarkable things that guy has done in his career.
Was that 2019 Masters win kind of a motivating factor for you during these last few months?
Yeah, I think, the beauty on my end is that I'm only 27 and I have a lot of golf ahead of me, and the fact that he did it in his 40s and had gone through, I think, multiple back surgeries, and let alone what's gone on with his knee and his leg and everything, is just I can't put words into it, because I was told early on that injuries and surgeries are almost as much mental as they are physical. And we all know that he's one of the strongest people mentally on the planet. And now having a better appreciation for it, like I said, it's truly remarkable.
And we'll finish up with Bob right here in the front.
Was a microdiscectomy broached as a possibility in the fall of 2022, before you played into the spring? And what were sort of the pros and cons of that? Was the idea to try everything you could to avoid it?
Yeah, just because of my age. I'm able to heal faster than others at that age. The recovery time was going to be the same, but there was no guarantee that a microdiscectomy would have been better than the rehab and the shots and everything that I had gone through. So it was definitely considered, but it was not recommended. And the beauty of, my surgeon and my team over at Texas Back Institute and Mike Duffy, they laid everything on the table, and they sent my MRIs and everything to dozens of other practices. And when I'm able to sit there and have, over 20 different practices confirming exactly that I'm going down the right path, even though that time-wise I couldn't stand the timeline of it, was very reassuring, and there were no second guesses.
Did Tiger recommend you be patient? There's
Yeah.
a sense that he wasn't with the first one, the very first one that he had.
Yeah, I can't speak to, his side of it on what, his surgeries and everything that he had to go through, but again, like not only just him, but a lot of the guys, especially some Champions Tour guys where, they've played 20 plus years competitively, where they said, look, you're 27 years old, take your time. Like, there's no reason for you to rush back into the fall and try to find your game and possibly, have to re-injure yourself, and just do everything as slow as possible. And I think that gave, like I said, it gave me a lot of reassurance that I was going down the right path. And like I said, as a golfer, I'm extremely impatient. But I knew that the end was in sight. And, like I said, the toughest thing was really just not knowing exactly when I was going to come back.
All right, Will, thank you very much for your time, and it's good to have you back here.
Thanks, man.
Is yours L5S?